Good morning, ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr. Super excited to have you here. I'm also streaming inside my free Facebook group, the Wealthy Women Society. So obviously I'll be keeping an eye on the comments there in case anybody has any questions as I go through today's episode. And obviously if you're listening to me, then you can watch this on YouTube. You can join us inside the Facebook group. You can basically do all the things. Like, I'm so accessible right now. It's super exciting. When I started my podcast, God, I think like 2 years ago now, it really wasn't with any intention to necessarily grow it. It was just I had so much to say and I needed a container or a vehicle to help me spread that message. So then obviously it was my podcast, and just had all the different innovative ways that this has now grown and expanded even blows my mind. And I know that it's such an incredible resource for so many women. I always get fantastic feedback. So I thought, well, the more I can make it interactive, make it fun, make it different, keep it fresh, then the better. So I am recording this episode. It's intended just to be a little bite-sized chunk, and you'll notice all of my last few episodes have been really focusing you around getting intentional about 2023, obviously, because I just feel so passionately about, as a woman, and particularly a woman if you have children or if you're a business owner, or just essentially lots of different projects that you're juggling. It's about having creating space. Basically, everything is energy in motion, and I know what it's like to feel that pressure as a woman to wear so many hats and to juggle so many things and to just keep adding more and more crap to our plates. And what I've realized is that it doesn't have to be that way at all. But it was a real mindset shift for me at the beginning, because I almost prided myself on the fact that I could multitask and do so many things. It became like a badge of honor. So you'll notice, if you've been listening to me for a while, if you're a client, if you've been in any of my containers, one of the things that I really feel passionate about stressing is that you don't feel tempted as you move into 2023 or start a new project or start a new business or a new adventure, is that you're not adding this on something that you've already got. You're creating space. So for me, this end of year period right now is a really important time to just be really present and intentional with what it is that I want to create going into 2023 and what needs to go in order to create space for that. Where can I start eliminating things from my life in order to do that? So that's something that I'm doing literally daily at the moment. So practical things, as a business owner, i.e., getting my invoices paid, making sure that I'm being paid, and energetically closing off and offboarding some clients that will obviously then go, and creating space for new clients going forwards. I'm looking at the amount of hours that I want to be working, the containers that I want to be working in. It's one of the reasons that I moved away from group coaching at the beginning of the year to more high touch, intimate one-to-one coaching kind of at the second half of this year. And then going into next year, it's actually about scaling back some of the one-to-ones and really pouring into my mastermind, because I wasn't going to be even launching this until maybe next year, but I've pulled it forwards because it just felt like the right time. I had a great number of one-to-one clients. I wanted to create some community. I brought some additional women to complement that, and it just feels really powerful. So obviously I want to keep that going. So that's my intention, is that I'm really going to put some love and some energy into growing my masterminds next year and really making it all it can be, because it kind of ticks all of my boxes in terms of the power of the collective and how, two heads are always better than one. And I really want to encourage my ladies that work with me and come into my energy to create something that's truly unique and special to them, and not fall into that trap of, when you come into the online space, of just looking around and seeing what everybody else is doing and thinking, oh, okay, so that must be how you create success, so I'm just going to replicate what they're doing. It's about almost like becoming a bit of an anarchist and a bit of a rule breaker, and just essentially thinking, no, I'm just going to do everything my own way, which is how I have always done life as a gal, and also as a woman moving into business. I've never done or anytime somebody tells me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something, it makes me want to do it twice as much. So, and it's the philosophy and the values that I've brought to my business, in that in order for it to be sustainable, I'm a manifesting generator. It has to feel expansive. It has to feel exciting. There has to be new energy, and or it's just a no from me. I know I've got ADHD as well. My attention span isn't very much. So if I am not constantly feeling challenged, excited, expanded, and that there's some newness there, there's still some opportunities for growth, then the energy just dissipates for me. It's one of the reasons why when I work with clients on a one-to-one basis, we start off with our quick wins, our phase 1 goals, and then we move quickly on. God, I can't get my words out today. What is wrong with me? I don't think I've had coffee, that's what it is. But we very quickly move on to our phase 2 goals. So it's like, right, okay, we've got this first set of wins, and from this limited viewpoint that we've got right now, because you only know what you know, this is what our goals and ambitions are for the business. But then once we've achieved all that, and we've gone through that process, and we've really moved into that next level embodiment of success, it's like, actually, the sky's the limit. And what my clients typically think will be their path to growth in the first couple of months very quickly explodes, and just this whole realm of possibility completely opens up, and then we quantum leap business. And that's when it's like, that's where a really great coach can come in, because they can really support you through that process. They can stop you from playing small. They can give you the shifts and the assurances and the confidence that you need to really go and create something special and collapse time. Because as a manifesting generator, that's one of our special skills, and is the ability to collapse time. And what typically takes people maybe 2 to 3 years to master, we can actually master it very quickly. And then, because I think we're constantly chasing that excellence, for me, I am a high performer through and through, and I'm always looking to master something very quickly, and I will become to a point of obsession where I will literally be fully immersed in that world. I will learn everything. I will fall down the rabbit holes. I will absolutely just completely absorb as much as I possibly can, because for me, it's about knowing if that's my thing, if that's what I want to, and you only know what you know. So for me, I would rather go all in on something very quickly, like learn as much as I possibly can in a very quick time frame, to then determine if this is something that I see for my long haul and for my 5-year plan and my growth. And actually, if I get really involved in it, and I'm like, do you know what, actually this isn't for me, I don't make myself wrong or bad about that. I understand the assignment, and as a manifesting generator, that's one of my skill sets, is that I can actually do that and then determine very quickly if this feels good to me, and if not. Because sometimes we can fall in love with the idea of something, and it's like, oh yeah, I think as a child I was like, oh, I really love the idea of becoming a doctor and doing something of service. But actually, when I realized, that's really going to box me in, that means I will have no freedom to do anything else. You'll spend 5 years just learning the process before you even determine if it's what you want. That it just kind of the energy started to dissipate from that ambition. And chances are, I probably, I don't think I could quantum leap medical school, but I think I could have probably, I don't know, things could have been very different, but my reality didn't match up with my ambitions, and that, sadly, I didn't get the opportunity to go to college or university, because I was already, living outside of the home and not in an environment that could nurture me to do that. It was very much, I needed to pay rent from 15. So I just went straight into work and ended up, I have now, since in my 20s, in my 30s, now my 40s, just committed to becoming a lifelong learner. And just, I got my master's at, I don't know, 30 something, which was really, really good for me, because it was entirely on my terms. It was in something that has really served me in other areas of my life and business, and felt really good. I wasn't doing it because I thought I had to, because anybody forced me to do it. It was entirely on my own terms, so therefore it was amazing. Equally, there's still things that I'm like, I might go back and get another master's in psychology at some point, just for fun, because I am a lifelong learner. I love that process of really getting into the detail of something, or why does it work. And it's why I've always been fascinated by psychology, why I am a coach, why I'm a business coach, like, because I'm fascinated with the psychology of entrepreneurship and why people buy and why they don't. And human behavior essentially is my jam, so I can apply that to so many different business interests, so many different avenues of life and different careers and all of the things. But that's not actually what I wanted to talk to you about today, but it's essentially setting the scene as to why I think that this work, this reflection work, is so important, and what I would love for you to do today as a quick win exercise, and then kind of adopt as a daily practice going forwards. So for me, I think the biggest thing that really changed my life was the ability to reframe things that had happened to me in life. So, and I see this all the time with my clients. So one thing that I want to kind of start plant that seed that you can then grow, like water, nurture, and watch it grow for yourself, is really around, like, how do you see the world right now? And moving into 2023, this is going to become more and more important, because we are essentially, what we're experiencing in the world is a reflection back at us of our belief systems. So if it goes without saying, then if you want to have a different result, outcome, reality moving into 2023, if you've got these incredible big goals, like, something that's going to have to shift internally in order for your reality to match up to those realities, you know, those actual goals. And that always comes from our belief system. And I think the biggest thing that I get as feedback is that I've had some terrible dark times and situations that have happened to me throughout childhood. Obviously, anybody that knows me and has listened to maybe some of my other episodes, you know, it's you know, it was a very turbulent and dark childhood, and then going into adulthood, it certainly wasn't easy. I've dealt with everything from abuse to alcoholism. I, you know, grew up in a hostel, like, didn't live with family, bounced around from family members, had, you know, very toxic relationships. I've just kind of experienced a lot of the worst of humanity, and yet my outlook on life is so positive. And I truly believe that is because it's how I choose to see it. And I remember actually listening to something with Oprah. I mean, I've listened to lots of high performance books and lots of really great mentors that have also had, like, really challenging times. And I genuinely believe, as a spiritual person, that everything that happened to me in early childhood, like bereavement, abuse, financial hardship, you know, my mum was very troubled, and just, I wasn't set up to win at any point in life, literally at any point in life. Even the fact that I was super premature and quite poorly, I think, when I was born. From the moment that I was born, life was hard, and yet I've managed to kind of find peace with that. And one of the things was, something cemented for me was, I was listening to a podcast episode from Oprah, which again was one of the reasons why I felt I know the power of these containers, and how just listening to something and can really, you know, give you that opportunity to reframe something that previously nobody had ever really questioned you on. You just accepted that thing, that belief, as truth. And I listened to something she said, and it was about how she just didn't really associate with her childhood, in that I think her grandmother had been trying to get her to learn something like maybe fold washing, and she was like, Oprah, you need to listen to this and learn this, because this is going to be your reality growing up, like, this is going to be your job. And Oprah was like, no, that isn't. And she just had this innate knowing as a child that her life that she was currently in wasn't actually where she was meant to be, and that wasn't certainly going to be where she was going forwards. And that was always something for me, was that I could always detach myself from my immediate circumstances and the reality of what was going on. And I always just had this sense of knowing that this is not it, this is not actually my life, this is not actually how it's meant to go. There is something out there greater that is waiting for me to catch up, essentially. And I always had that from such a young age, that I felt like, and people would always say to me as well, you know, you think you're too good, like, you're full of yourself. And it wasn't that I was outwardly confident and bragging and like, I'm going to be amazing and I'm going to be this. It was just this inner knowing. But I guess people felt it, you know. I've had that many times. Oh, you think you're too good for yourself, and, you know, yeah, I do think I'm too good for this immediate circumstance. And I do think that Kevin Hart said, you can't keep a good spirit down. And I've always wanted to find the light and find the happiness in any situation. I've never accepted that even through dark times that they're ever going to be forever. I believe that obviously, I've been through so much challenge in life so that it's led me up to this very moment. And I believe that for you too, that it's come, you've been guided on this journey to be in this right now, this very moment, so that you can essentially reframe, take back your power and reframe this moment for greatness. And I believe that I was here to serve, and I'm here for my clients, my women that I work with, because I can relate on a deeper level. I can understand, but also I can be a source of inspiration, and I can help them on their next chapter of life where they really take back their power over the crappy situations, over the beliefs that haven't served them, over the people that haven't served them and shouldn't have treated them in horrible ways, so that they can then go out and create something really beautiful. And that's what I want you guys to do, is to be able to essentially, I've got three kind of phrases to this. It's like, if your reality right now is not matching up to what it is that you want, I want you to start looking at how you see the world as a whole. What beliefs have been formed through these patterns of behaviors and these circumstances and these continual cycles of toxic behavior, if any of that applies to you. Reflect on that in a really empowering way. So this isn't about judgment, it's about lovingly observing everything that's happened up to this moment and taking away the lessons and the blessings. And essentially that then shifts your perspective of the world. I think in itself, just being able to look at a really crappy situation or a person or a circumstance or a perceived failure, and being able to look at that and say, actually, do you know what, I'm thankful for X, Y, and Z. And maybe it's because that's made me a stronger person, that's tested my faith. And I've always used to say this, like, I almost felt sorry for people in life that had never really truly been tested, because then you don't really see what you're capable of. You never really get that sense of resilience and reliance and trust and faith in yourself that you will be okay, because you've never really been tested. And I do wonder about this, like with my kids. I'm a very overprotective parent, and sometimes I wonder if it is even to their detriment that they've had it so easy. But then I think, no, obviously that's my job. That's my job as a parent, and I don't want them to have to go through the hardships that I have in order to build up the resilience that I have in myself. I will find different ways, and they will find different ways. And actually, trauma and is relative, and whatever happens to them in life that forms a challenge, it will be relative to their understanding of the world. So no, it might not be the shitstorm that I've been through, but even if it was, bullying or somebody not being kind to them, it's relative to what they've experienced in life at that point. It will still feel like a trauma, even if to the outside world and with the power of perspective, it's not that big of a deal. To them, it will be. And then that will be how they find their resilience. So that was kind of something I wanted to get out there. But I'd love for you today to take a moment to reflect on all of those crappy things, like I said, that have maybe, even if it's just for the last year, that you feel have skewed your view of the world. I know COVID for a lot of us really did that, and for me actually it opened up even more so my view of the world, because instead of looking at the sadness and the hardship and the struggles that people went through, I chose to focus on the beauty. Like literally I could cry every day at finding those stories where it was just these amazing acts of people, just human compassion, kindness, the things that people were doing for each other that they just never would have had that opportunity before, clapping for the NHS. I went above and beyond for my elderly neighbours, and it's the kind of thing that I never would have had that opportunity to before, because these were the kind of neighbours that I would say hi, and it was only when they were in a position where they actually had to receive help that they then became open to it, and that allowed me and my kids to do some really beautiful things. Like I was living in an apartment block at that time for most of lockdown, and my kids were drawing pictures and putting them through people's doors, and literally, like, it makes me cry now. Like, acts of kindness will always like push me over the edge emotionally. So that was just so beautiful to see my kids like step forward and be super kind, and that's what I chose to believe, that the world is fundamentally good. And it just circles back to that initial question that I said about you know, how do you see the world, and how is that going to serve you going into 2023? If you believe that the world is a great place, that it is full of abundance and opportunities, guess what? All of those big goals that you are looking to manifest for next year, you're absolutely going to achieve them. If you believe that making money is hard, that the world is hard, opportunities are few and far between, that you don't have everything that you need in order to be successful, guess what? You're just going to get more of the same, and that is what's going to be reflected back to you. So you really need to start opening yourself up to what is, you know, an anything is possible mindset and a growth mindset. And I essentially, that comes from taking back the power from some of those situations perhaps weren't great, because you'll be basing your opinion on your likelihood of hitting your goals next year based on what has happened previously. But if you can then take back the power and reframe, so that's kind of like step 2. So it's reflect, and then it's reframe what has happened to you so far and put a positive spin on it. Then you start to expand your mind as to what is possible for you going into next year. And if you think that it's like the bridge of possibility when it comes to manifestation. If you think that a goal is somewhat likely and at the very least possible, you're going to go all in taking the inspired action to make it work. If you think it is completely like, I've got no fucking idea, I've got no idea how that's worked, it's so unlikely, as much as you can try and think positive every day, if there's that part of you that's like, there's just no fucking way, then guess what? You're never really going to become a vibrational match to it anyway, because you're automatically energetically taking yourself out the game. If you believe that there's at least the chance, and you have surrounded yourself with, you know, this is where the next thing comes in, reinforcement. So it's about, how do I surround myself with positive anchors and messages and examples and people that actually, again, make that goal even more likely, so it's even more possible, so that, again, you can become that vibrational match to it. It becomes almost from, it could happen, it might happen, to it's actually quite likely to happen, to it's a no-brainer, to it's absolutely fucking happening. I'm claiming it, I'm owning it. There is no two ways about it. And then if you think you're approaching a task with that mindset, with that anything is possible and it's absolutely mine, I own it, it's in the bag, do you think that you're going to be successful? Of course you are, because even if one way doesn't work, you're opening yourself up to the creative possibilities and the inner resilience and creativity that you have, that you'll just make it happen a different way. You know, even if it doesn't happen as you thought it would, it's going to happen. Even if it's not necessarily within the time frames that you're happening, you're bridging the gap every day between what is possible and therefore then what is real. So it's happening, it's moving, you're moving towards it. And that's what I kind of want you to do. So it's my 3-step process. It's looking at, how do you see the world right now? You know, what is your reality? What is being reflected back at you? If it doesn't serve you or your goals, how can you then reflect on that? How can you then reframe it to something that is more positive, so you now own that story, not that story owns you? And then how can you reinforce that anything is possible mindset? So that will be surrounding yourself with incredible people. That's why I have my mastermind, because all of the women there are really showing each other what is possible. When some of my clients were like, oh, it's December, nobody's buying, people have got no money, cost of living crisis, other women in the mastermind are like, well, actually, I'm having my best month ever, and actually people are ready to buy and they are ready to set themselves up for success for the new year. So actually go all in. And it's really reframed some of my other clients to then be like, oh, okay, well, if she can do it, I can do it too. So how can you, obviously, and you're welcome to join me inside 7-Figure Sisterhood Mastermind. I will pop all the links in the show notes. And I'd obviously love to have you there, because that's the power of the collective for me. It is that reinforcement every day, especially if you don't have a family that support you in these things. If you don't have evidence of you hitting these successful big goals before, it's even more important that you surround yourself with people that can reinforce the message that it's possible, you know, because they're doing it as well. It's listening to podcasts like this, because like I say, I didn't grow up with anybody ever once telling me that life was going to be any different. It was always about how hard life is, how awful people are, how bad things happen to good people, how just, you know, life is just one shitstorm until you die. And it is what it is. You know, you just work hard, pay your taxes, and then eventually you might have some time to yourself when you're elderly and hopefully still fit enough. And then you die, and that's it, you know. But things like podcasts, books, affirmations, actively seeking mentors and coaches and peers that could give me a different opinion and show me what was possible too. That was what really quantum leaped my success. So I'd love to leave you with those three things now. So it's reflect, reframe, and reinforce. So that all of those big goals that you have for 2023, I absolutely want those for you. And it's ensuring that you are set up with the most amount of success in your life, both mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, and environmentally, to actually succeed. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. This will probably be one of my last ones now until New Year. But yeah, I hope you are just thinking bigger than ever possible before. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas with your family, and thank you so much for being here.